There are multiple ways to play retro Super Nintendo games. With all the options available, there are two that have jumped into the forefront. For many reasons, these have become the go-to for those who want to play them. Reasons such as authenticity, image quality, and ease of use. While they're two separate machines, they both accomplish a common goal: to play Super Nintendo games at the highest quality. When I played the Super Nintendo for the first time, I instantly knew it was special. That feeling further compounded as I introduced my console to more games. There must have been more who felt the same way because it's been an ongoing pursuit to have a way to play those games. By far the most famous return of Super Nintendo games was on the Wii's Virtual Console. The service brought retro games to the masses. It was easy to find and download whatever game you wanted. The selection was amazing for a service like this. Something we'll probably never see again. Companies came together and made something unique for the time. The games ran great. It helped that they were presented in their original 240p resolution. Paired with the Wii's component cables, these games looked quite good. With the Virtual Console being shut down, there's no longer an official way to play them. The Wii U has a Virtual Console that plays the games wonderfully. They look and control very well. Being displayed over HDMI, the pixels are sharp and clear. The only downside to the Wii U's VC is the game selection. There are plenty to choose from, but it's not as many as the Wii had. Though if you have access to a Wii U, I'd seriously recommend picking these games up on the Virtual Console. Having them play over HDMI is an even better reason to get them on the Wii U over the Wii. Though they're not presented in the original 240p, they still look better right out of the box with no modding. In the early days of the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo released a follow-up to the massively popular NES Classic Edition. Both systems created such a buzz around Nintendo, it was hard to get your hands on either one. Both appealed to large amounts of people. The Switch plays home console games on the go, and the SNES Classic plays a carefully curated amount of classic titles that people wanted to replay. Everything about the SNES Mini was purposely designed to tap into nostalgia. The packaging instantly hit you in your good old days bone. Even though my parents threw away my original box on day one, I deep down still remember how it looks. The colorful circles and rectangles scream the time period they were designed in. The color play also ties into the era of gaming it was made for. That italicized Super Nintendo will go down as some of the best designed words ever created. Nintendo nailed the look with the smaller version. The box isn't an exact copy of the original, but it accomplishes what it sets out to do: make you think about how great it was to play these games years ago. The changes are great, by the way. The cover art on the back is designed so well. I love the characters that are placed around the various games. I especially love how Mario is running at full speed and looks like he's swooshing into flight with Yoshi with the box art from Super Mario World. I also like this Link peeking out from behind the Star Fox box art. It's just very well designed. But this is just the box that houses the actual system. If the box art has had this much care given to it, you know there's something special inside. Once you open the box, the magic really happens. The miniature console successfully mimics the aesthetic of the original design, even featuring faux controller ports to give it that extra detail to pull on your nostalgia. I'm from North America, so this version of the Super Nintendo is my absolute favorite. I gotta have the purple on the console. I love all the sharp angles this thing has. Don't get me wrong, the Super Famicom has a great design, but I prefer this one. Everything is perfectly replicated, just way smaller. It's surprising how much smaller it is compared to the original. Super Nintendo cartridges are just about the same size as this thing. But what really pushes this thing over the top is the inclusion of not one, but two official Super Nintendo controllers. I can't tell you how much I appreciated having these in the box. I've said it many times before, the controller is half the experience. Unlike today, controllers back then had all sorts of configurations. It wasn't standardized like it is now. In fact, we still see the impact these controllers had on gaming. Most controllers now use the Super Nintendo's controller design. Shoulder buttons were new back when this controller came out. Also, having the face buttons in a diamond shape was radically different than what we had before. Look at all the controllers from the big three gaming powerhouses. You'll notice that indeed, they are still using this design. It was perfect, and the use of this button layout for all these years validates that thought. Having the actual controller included in the package pushed it over the top. And it felt great. Having a brand new Super Nintendo controller was a dream come true. Playing those games with the exact controller they were designed to be played with is nothing short of perfection. Yeah, the Wii gave us the Wii Classic controller, which was built to be used with all kinds of retro games. And to be honest, it really wasn't all that bad for playing Super Nintendo games. But it wasn't the actual controller. This is what these games were meant to be played with. But there's good news and bad news with this controller. The bad news is, you can't use this on an actual Super Nintendo. It has the same plug as the Wii Classic controller. It would have been so great if these could have been used on the real Super Nintendo. The good news is the same as the bad news. It has the same connector as the Wii Classic controller, meaning it can be used with your Virtual Console games. This is huge. Using this to play SNES games on the Wii, and more importantly, the Wii U, makes those games instantly more fun to play. You can still download games on the Wii U Virtual Console, so this connector is still relevant. By far the best way to play those games is with this official, authentic Super Nintendo controller. Nintendo didn't give us just one controller with the Super NES Classic, they gave us two, which for me means I have a backup. Since I rarely play multiplayer games besides Mario Kart, I will always have a backup. Connecting the controller into the Mini Dream Machine and pushing the power switch up turns on the red light on the front, an excellent detail I wasn't really expecting to see. When the picture fires up, you're greeted with the box art from the many games that are included. Also featured is a song that sounds like it should have been a theme song for a first-party 16-bit Nintendo game. Nintendo has been spot on with their menu theme songs. Think the Wii Shop channel and the main menu for the NES Classic Edition. They hit the mark again with this song. I love that they used the box art from the many games that are included. The games that are included that I owned as a kid, I instantly wanted to play those games first, which I did. Donkey Kong Country was the first game I played on this. Not only do I love this game more than any other Super Nintendo game, I've played it so many times that I know exactly how it should feel. I can test things out like how much lag is in the input and if the sounds and visuals are correct. Upon playing the game, the visuals were fantastic. The sound was also perfect. The music in this game is life-changing. The Super NES Classic plays it wonderfully. I was also very happy to learn that the games have interpolation. I've talked about this before, but it's a very big deal, so I'll bring it up here again. Interpolation softens the pixel edges ever so slightly, so that the image can scroll without shimmering. The shimmer is caused by pixels that are being stretched and retracted during scrolling. With the softer edges, these pixels blend together, eliminating the shimmer. Remember, these games were intended to be played on CRT TVs. Modern HD TVs display sharper images, which causes some problems with retro games. The games are displayed over HDMI in 720p. The games look great in 720p. It's like they were made for high-definition TVs. I've had no visual issues playing the SNES Classic on my 4K TV. There are also some options to play these games in other ways. The default is on the original 4:3 aspect ratio. This is my preferred setting as it's how I remember the games being played. With the interpolation, it looks great. There's a pixel perfect mode that makes every pixel a perfect square. This mode squishes things a bit, but it's definitely doable. Then there's the CRT filter. I actually like to play the games on this setting, just to see how they looked when they were originally released. I do play a real Super Nintendo on a real CRT, but this is so convenient it's hard not to just try it out. And it actually does look pretty good. The game selection is also fantastic. There are 21 games pre-installed on the console. They also happen to be some of the best games to have ever been released on the Super Nintendo. Games like Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, Mario Kart, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, Castlevania 4, Super Metroid, and it even has Earthbound. And the list goes on. There are a few strange omissions like Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3, Super Mario All-Stars, and the most glaring game for most people, Chrono Trigger. Seriously though, where were the first-party games? You might as well have put those on this little box. It's hard to argue with what's already there. It's a fantastic game lineup, and the best part, the whole thing retailed at $80. This is an absolute steal for the games it has and for bundling it with 2 authentic controllers. But there are a few downsides. The aforementioned lack of a few games, and an even bigger problem. There is some input lag. It's not detrimental to the gameplay experience, but it's there. It's about the same as it is with the Virtual Console games on the Wii, which I played happily. It's not too bad, but it's noticeable. The reason these games have a slight delay between the button press and the action being performed on the screen is because these games are being emulated. Emulation is great, and I'm happy that we have ways to play these games so inexpensively. The lag is a slight blemish on something that is so perfect. So what do you do if you don't want to emulate your games? If you're like me, I'm not a complicated person. Trying to figure out how to upscale my original consoles to be played on my HDTV is like trying to figure out how to untangle a giant ball of wire. External upscalers are not in my wheelhouse of knowledge, and I'm not even sure how to use SCART cables. Luckily, there's one company that makes a product that cuts out all the extra complication. Analogue makes the wonderfully simplistic Super NT. This is a Super Nintendo that's been made for modern TVs. It only outputs in HD with the HDMI port on the back, and it displays games in 1080p. The Super NT is made with an FPGA. It essentially mimics the components of actual Super Nintendo hardware. It's the closest thing to a real Super Nintendo as you can get. It's designed to play your original Super Nintendo cartridges. That's right, it plays actual cartridges. There's no emulation to this console. It's physical hardware playing physical games. That means there's absolutely no lag introduced to the controls. This is amazing. Games control like a dream. Donkey Kong Country plays exactly how it's programmed to be played. This is the most authentic way to play Super Nintendo games without actually playing an original Super Nintendo. And to add to the authentic experience the Super NT offers, you can use your original Super Nintendo controllers. Wireless controllers also work on it, like what 8BitDo makes, but I prefer to use the original SNES controllers with it. There's a menu that offers many different options you can dial in, but I have rarely ever delved into it. The only reason I've gone into the menu is because I needed to enable the hardware sound for the Super Game Boy. That's right, it's also compatible with the Super NT, which makes playing Game Boy games even more amazing. Games also have interpolation on this console. I was also very happy to see that it was included on this amazing machine. It is a perfect version of a Super Nintendo. I've said it before and I'll say it again, this console is so good it might even defy gravity. But there are downsides to the Super NT. First of all, the price. It sells for $190 plus shipping. It's not too expensive, but compared to the Super NES Classic, it's over $100 more. Also, it only includes one game, Super Turrican. You have to provide the other games yourself as this only plays physical cartridges. Meaning, if you don't already own those games, you'll have to buy them. And that can add up quickly. Unlike the SNES Classic that includes 21 games ready to be played, and those were 21 of the best games ever made. It's worth mentioning that the Switch has Super Nintendo games included with its paid online service. The game selection is slowly growing and those games look great on the Switch. They also play great, especially with the wireless Super Nintendo controller you can buy from Nintendo directly. If you have a Switch, it's worth checking out. I have a video all about this. I put a link in the description to that video. So which one is better? That all depends on what you value more. First off, the price of each is drastically different. $80 versus $190. That is significant for what you get. The Super NES Classic Edition comes with everything you need to play it right out of the box. The Super NT only comes with the console. Both have the ability to be played with authentic first-party Super Nintendo controllers, which for me is huge. Both output in HD, however that high definition does range. The Super NES Classic Edition outputs in 720p, while the Super NT ups it to 1080p. Both consoles look amazing on modern HD TVs. Now here's the biggest difference: the way the games are played. Emulation versus physical game cartridges. I think this is by far the most important factor between the two, and it comes down to how authentic you want your gameplay to be. Do physical cartridges even matter to you? If not, it's a no-brainer to go with the Super NES Classic Edition. It's only $80 for a bundle of amazing titles and 2 controllers. It's ready to go right out of the box. If you want to play actual game cartridges in the best way possible, as if you were actually playing an original Super Nintendo, then the Super NT is absolutely the way to go. There are multiple ways to play retro Super Nintendo games. With all the options available, there are 2 that have jumped into the forefront. For many reasons, these 2 have become the go-to for many who want to play them. Reasons such as authenticity, image quality, and ease of use. While they're 2 separate machines, they both accomplish a common goal: to play Super Nintendo games at the highest quality. Both systems are great options. The most important thing about both systems is you're playing Super Nintendo games.